how it goes ये नहीं हो रहा था ठीक है बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम. So what I have to say today is something that is very unusual, different, something that क्या मुसीबत है. ये स्लाइड शो पे क्यों नहीं जा रहा है. ये अब आ गया ठीक है. Good. So before we start discussing about the Pakistan economy, we must have some clarity about why we are doing this. What I have to tell you is that knowledge, you see, there is a concept of knowledge which we have absorbed, which is that knowledge is objective, factual, concrete, something out there. But that is not the reality, not the truth about knowledge. Knowledge is very flexible, vague, subjective. There is 100 billion things to know. No human being can learn everything that there is to know. It is impossible. Thousands of people working over centuries have created a body of knowledge which we currently have collectively. And no human being can hope to know it all. So the question is that if we are going to learn 1 in 1,000, and that would be a great accomplishment, maybe 1 in 10,000 part, and now in 1 hour, obviously it will be even 1 in a million part, then which part of that knowledge should I present to you, and how should I select this part? Now there is a misconception which was given to us in the West, that all knowledge is equal. Knowledge is knowledge. But actually this is not what our religion teaches us. The Prophet ﷺ asked for ilmun nafi', and he asked for protection from ilmun la yanfa'. So there is useful knowledge and there is useless knowledge. And so for many years now, I have been working on converting knowledge to useful knowledge. Because what I was taught, I learned to my surprise with experience, that a huge amount of what I was taught at the best institutions in the world was useless. It did not have any intersection with the reality. A small portion of it does, but how to find out which portion is relevant and which is not, this is not an easy job. And so I have been working on this for years because the circumstances were such that I was forced to do so, because I could not, as a PhD or trainer of PhDs, I found that the idea that I could transfer everything that I knew to the students was impossible. It would take several years. So I was forced to concentrate on what is that part which is relevant and useful, and which part we can ignore. So for efficiency, because I had to do the same, I had to transfer this knowledge. But so much to my surprise, I discovered that 90% of what I was taught was not relevant. So I've come to, I give my students this analogy that I was trained in how to assemble and manufacture a car, and I know where the radiator goes and where the carburetor goes and the spark plugs but I was not taught how to drive actually, and that's something I learned myself. And so similarly, even you can take a person who has no education and you can teach him how to drive a car, But if you want to teach about engine manufacturing, that's a very technical and complicated and difficult subject, and not everybody can learn that. So, unfortunately or fortunately, driving is an entirely different matter. So now the issue is that I can tell you all about the world economy and I can tell you 1,000 things and we can sit here until evening, but most of that knowledge is of no use to you. It is just so this is a conception actually, which is so now the question is I have to concentrate. It is my job, responsibility to make sure that I don't waste your time, because the most fundamental axiom which Islam teaches us is every human life is infinitely precious. In the Quran, it is written that one human being, the life of one man, if you kill one person, it's like you've killed the whole world. And if you save one life, it is as if you have saved the whole world. So every human being, every human life is worth the entire planet. So, and this is not just a metaphor or a exaggeration. It is actually true that in every human being, Allah Ta'ala has planted the potential to change the whole world. So, our job here, especially my job here as a teacher, is that I look at the students as, see, Allah Ta'ala has created for us the seed of a tree. Now, the seed of the tree contains within it the potential to become something which is no resemblance to that seed. It is the tree has, it's a miracle which we see every day, that this seed, even though it has no eyes and no arms and no legs and no brains, you put it in the ground and it seeds out the thousands of different types of chemicals and puts them through the manufacturing process to create the roots and the barks and the stem and the leaves and the fruits. How can it do that without having any moving parts? So just like this seed has the potential to become a tree, so every human being has the potential to become something which is unbelievable. It's so far out. This is why لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, that insan has been made in the best of forms. So the goal of an educator is to develop this potential and to make the students aware that there is this potential, and to understand that if this potential within us is realized, then we can have then we are infinitely precious, as said elsewhere. But if this potential fails to develop, then there is nothing, and you have missed out on the meaning of life, what it was all about. And actually, here we are in a battle, in the sense that there is a distraction, and there is the largest part of the battle is false knowledge which has been given to you. If I were to talk about it, I could talk about 1,000 different ideas which are widespread and completely wrong, and which everybody believes, including economics, which is my specialty in this field. Nearly everything that we teach in the textbooks is completely false. Like, to give a major example, we teach the quantity theory of money. Now, as it happens, the quantity theory of money says that if you increase the level of money in the economy, double the amount of money in circulation, then what will happen is that the prices will double and nothing real will change. And now it happens that this is completely false. And this was discovered first by Keynes in 1929 in the aftermath of the Great Depression, because he realized that money was not behaving in this way. But then this knowledge was forgotten. And so now today again we are teaching this. And actually the interesting thing is that empirically it was discovered since the 1980s that There is something technical in economics which is called the quantity equation. And we estimated these equations and we found that these equations don't work with the data. So, in fact, there is a realization that there is something wrong. But despite the fact that this theory does not match the data, is not correct, at the central bank, there are many people who are making monetary policy. So they are the ones who should know the right theories, but they are using the wrong theory to make decisions. And similarly, all over the world, privatization, foreign direct investment, export, promotion, all of these ideas that we are told that these are essential for the development of Pakistan, actually these are just myths and fables which have been told to us. So there is a reality, and it is very important to discover the reality, but there is an active effort to mislead and misguide us. So this, we are in a battle. There is a war going on, but the war is not going on with weapons, not going on with guns and bombs. The main war, the biggest war, is in the battlefield of knowledge, of ideas. And so far, the side of ignorance and jahiliyyah is winning, and they have spread huge number of false ideas, and they are continue to do so every day. So my goal in this talk, in which we have a very small amount of time, is to just try to open your eyes to some of the major myths that we have learned to believe in. And because human beings are very powerful, one thing that is very important, one of the biggest myths is that we have been taught is that this world is run by material forces. So once you start to believe that, so if we want Pakistan to develop, then we will need to have factories and industries and technologies, and this is not true. Actually, the world is run by human beings. And the most important and the most valuable resource of Pakistan is not the coal which is under the mines of Thar, it is the people of Pakistan. If we can invest in them and we can create in them the change that is required, then nothing else is needed. We have all the other material resources that is necessary to create powerful change. And this was demonstrated when by the coming of the Prophet ﷺ, when he took a group of people who were the most backwards on the planet at that time. And at that time, there were major civilizations like China and Egypt and Rome and Persia, who had technologies and philosophy and literature and arts and all sorts of luxuries and advanced civilizations. But he took this group of people who were backwards, ignorant, illiterate. They had no culture to speak of. They were just Bedouin in the desert. And he took them from the bottom to the top of the world. And for 1,000 years, the Arabs created, the Muslims created a civilization which dominated the world. And what was the resource that it took? Did he bring them some new type of technology, some factory, No, it was all knowledge. In fact, if you remember the first verses of the Quran, the first verses that were revealed go as Iqra bismi rabbika allazi khalaq. Read. This is the first word. It's really a huge surprise that for the Ummah, which was the first word of Wahi was read, most of the Ummah is unable to read at this time. They are illiterate. And then Allah Ta'ala here in the Prophet ﷺ sitting in Ghar Hira, and the angel came, and he didn't know at that time anything about God. And so Allah Ta'ala is introducing himself. So he introduces himself as Allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam, that Allah Ta'ala is the being who teaches man that which he did not know. And it was that knowledge that led Muslims to the top of the world. And today it is the loss of this knowledge that has led us to the bottom of the world. And the knowledge is still there, just as powerful as it was 1400 years ago. But today we are not paying attention to what this knowledge is and how we can acquire it. So, with this preliminary, and this preliminary is necessary because the way I was taught in the West, I was taught very different things about what is the nature of knowledge, how it should be studied, how it should be taught. So it took me a long time to get rid of these wrong ideas about what is knowledge, how it should be acquired, how it should be studied. And so I am having to present this because otherwise, if this was commonly understood background, which every educated person knows, as it used to be, then I would not need to go into all this preliminary discussion. But the fact is that today the commonly understood background of what knowledge is, how it should be acquired, is completely wrong and based on wrong ideas about what knowledge is and how it should be acquired. So I have to clarify the preliminary before we go into the actual details of what I would like to cover. So let us focus on so now I come to the issue at hand. The issue at hand in context of the topic that we are studying, Pakistan's role, Pakistan's economy in the context of domestic, regional and global issues. Well, obviously, we are not studying knowledge just for the sake of learning. We are studying for some particular goal we have in mind. So what is the goal we have in mind? Well, we would like to use this knowledge to bring about the development of Pakistan. Can we achieve an economic transformation? If you look at what happened in East Asia, they were behind us in the 1960s. The income of Korea was around $90 per annum and Pakistan was at 96 or something like that. Now, Korea is at 28,000 and Pakistan is at 1,500. So somewhere or the other, we went astray. We did not make the right decisions. So similarly, the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa for the S, these have achieved miracles in the recent past. Just about 20, 30 years ago, the workers in China were driving oxen, and now they are driving cars. So change is possible. It can be achieved. It has been achieved. Good policies can turn around and change the future of countries. Even Bangladesh and India have had higher growth rates than us in the past 2 decades. Why? And how can we change things around? How can we improve Pakistan's performance? So I would like to say that the common thinking here is that there is an external problem. We need to attract foreign investors. We need to do this, that, and the other. But I would like to say that this is not true. The main problem is our soft problems. Soft problem means that the problems exist inside our heads and minds and hearts. It's not the problem of resource constraints. We have all the resources we need. Now, that's not the only thing, of course. These soft problems are not there because we are stupid, actually, and we believe in wrong theories. But actually, there is a determined opposition. There is a determined effort to feed us the wrong ideas through newspapers, media, IMF, World Bank. These are constantly propagating wrong ideas about what we should be doing. And unfortunately, because we don't see through these things, so we come to believe in ideas which are actually major obstacles to our progress. So currently you should understand that the nature of the world we live in is that the poorest countries of the world are paying interest to the richest countries of the world. So the amount money is being transferred. So basically, if you remember that in colonial times, Europe conquered about 85% of the planet. And the European nations were receiving as tribute billions of pounds from India, but actually all of the world was basically put to work at producing revenue for Europe. This was the nature of this is what colonialism and imperialism means. So now the surprising thing is that this has not changed one bit. The same thing continues to be true, even though in name we have freedom, in name we have our own independence, and in name we have control of our own policies. But in practice, this is not true. Today, just like in the colonial times, in the imperialist times, the tribute is being extracted from the poorest countries and is going to the richest countries of the world. And how this is done? Well, this is the comment of ex-President Obasanjo of Nigeria. He was talking in G8 summit, and he said that in 1985 we borrowed around $5 billion, and now we have paid about 16 billion, but still we owe about 28 billion. So this is the nature of compound interest. So basically, the interest is the tool. The loans and okay, so I haven't covered that later. So let me just explain in very brief terms, because we have very little time, that today's colonial system is very subtle and sophisticated, and so we don't see it because that makes it even more powerful. But basically, the system is very simple. The countries, and it's no longer countries. You see, things are changing so rapidly. I'm going to oversimplify the big picture, which is much more complicated, but I can't develop it. So, moti baatein main batla raha hu. The money is being paid as salaries to the ruling elites of Pakistan and everywhere in the world. The military and the politicians, they all receive money in the form of loans. Now, according to economic theory, these loans are beneficial to us in the sense that loans are given to us for projects, and these projects will generate revenue for Pakistan, and we should pay out the loan back from the outcome of the project. This is what economic theory tells us. So that it will be a win-win solution. We get investment, we improve our productive capacity, and from our profits we pay back those people who invested in Pakistan. But in reality, when my friend became the finance minister of Sindh, and then he said that I got the portfolio of foreign projects, investments in Pakistan. So there were, he said, about 150 projects, $1 million here, $1 billion here, and so on. So I looked at them, and none of these projects were completed. 150 open projects with no clear idea as to where it is going. So where is the money going? Well, this money is going as contract money being paid to consultants. A lot of it goes back. When you are getting aid, you get $50 million, and you're constrained that you have to pay this $40 million to such and such company in America to do your consulting. So now they pay $40 million to their own people, in effect, but going through us, now we are saddled with the interest payment on that debt. So this is a very clever trick. And on top of it, we are indebted to them in the sense that, they gave us a loan. So there is a moral obligation. So, but in addition to that, 40 million goes back, but what about that 10 million? Well, that buys Pajeros for our leaders and other kinds of perks and privileges and prerequisites. So no development takes place. So this money, which is coming in as loans, is basically salaries to the decision makers. And what are they going to do with the salary? Well, they tax the country and they pay back. So that's their job. So it's basically the same job that the colonial governors used to do, But the colonial governors were of a different race, so it was easy to recognize them and to understand what was going on. But today the system remains the same, but now it's very hard to understand because it is not working in an obvious way. Now, I would like to clarify what I said about wrong economic theories running the world. So there is this World Bank publication which is called the East Asian Miracle. You can find it, it's on the internet, easily available for download. And it starts by admiring the East Asian countries who achieved this transformation. Korea and Singapore and Thailand and Malaysia, they achieved consistently high growth rates in the neighborhood of 7-8% consistently for 30 years, and this transformed the world. They went from agrarian economies to advanced industrialized economies. So it was a miracle in the sense that everybody was trying, everybody on the planet was trying to do this, but nobody else, including Pakistan, was unable to achieve this. So how did they achieve this? They analyzed this, that, okay, this was done by, there were big industries which were guided by the government. There was industrial policy. The government subsidized selectively some industries and guided the development. They provided export subsidies to develop exports. They had price controls. They had tight government control of money. Many other policies. These are listed explicitly in the book. So now, some years later, they created this organization called the World Trade Organization, to which we are signatories. And what does this World Trade Organization do? It asks us to sign statements that there will be no interference by the government in the industries. There will be no industrial policy. There will be no export subsidies. There will be free capital movements. The government is not supposed to control. So exactly all 5 of the things which are listed in the World Bank as the reason how the East Asian countries achieved their miracle, we are prevented from doing that. We have signed this and we cannot do these things. Why? So, and of course, it is not said, when we signed the WTO, it is not said that this is to prevent you from developing. What is said is that this is what economic theory tells us is the best thing for you to do. And our foolish economists, which I teach, we teach them that this is good, that government should be out of private sector, and that there should be no industrial policy, and there should be no export subsidy. All of these things are taught in the economics textbooks that we teach in Pakistan and all over the world. So, if we want to progress and develop, the first thing we need to do is to liberate our minds. The period of colonization has ended, but the colonization of our mind is very much there. So economic theory tells us that export-led growth, everybody in Pakistan today, everybody in the senior policy circles, the Ministry of Commerce, Planning Division, they are concerned that our exports are going down, and what can we do to improve our exports? The thing is that this is not our problem. What we need is not to increase our exports. What we need to do is to improve our domestic demand. What is domestic demand? Well, basically, there are different strategies for growth. Again, because of shortage of time, I cannot go in. Even though this is a very important topic, I cannot go into the full detail, otherwise we'll be stuck here and we can spend the rest of the half hour explaining why export-led growth is the wrong strategy. But I would just sketch briefly that domestic demand-based growth is a different strategy. It says that instead of, you see, what's export-led growth? Export-led growth means that make your goods in such a way that they are attractive to foreigners. Sell these goods to foreigners and acquire foreign exchange. Now, this is a very bad strategy. The right strategy for us to follow is to create demand for we have hundreds of thousands of people in our own country. Let them produce, instead of having let them have the demand. How can they have the demand? We have to work on increasing their incomes in sufficiently so that they can look for more than food. And if they do that, then they will demand things. But what will they demand? They will demand very simple, crude, and basic things. They will not demand advanced technological projects, which is what we need for foreign competition. Now, if you remember, I think you're all of the right age, that there was a time when Japanese products flooded our markets, and they were all called Japani mal, was raddi. It was very poor, very low quality. So that's how it starts. You see, if you can't jump from zero to hero from in a second, and which is what the export-led demand strategy wants to do. What we do is we make very crude, very simple, very cheap objects for our own population. But we can do that only if there is demand. But to get that demand, we need to improve the living standards in our own country, and that can be done. There is plenty of things, but currently no one is worried about that. You see, the mindset which economic theory teaches us and which our planners have is that let us achieve development and growth, and let us get wealth, and then we will take that wealth and give it to our people. This is completely wrong, and in fact completely idiotic strategy. What we need to do is to make the lives of our people slightly better. And there are so many of them that if we make the lives of them better, then these people will be the engines of growth, and they will create the transformation we are looking for. It is not so they will create the wealth that we want, not that we are going to create wealth and give it to them, but actually we need to just enable them to live lives as human beings, which we are failing to do currently. And if we can do that, then then they will change the world. So domestic demand-led strategy tells us entirely different policies from the export-led growth. Similarly, this idea of privatization, this is another red herring which is very strongly believed. So actually, if you there is this myth that governments are more corrupt and inefficient than the private sector. This is completely false. The same people are in the government and the same people are in the private sector, and the level of corruption in both is exactly the same. And this is true not just in Pakistan, all over the world. And if you look at what happened in the global financial crisis, basically it was the corruption of the private sector which led to this $1 trillion loss to the global economy. So you can't say that private sector is less corrupt than the government. It's just corruption is a quality of the people, and how we manufacture people in our society. This will lead to corrupt private sector and corrupt government. And if we focus on the opposite, then we can change things, and we can have better government and better private sector. And it is again a completely false misconception that government should get out of the way and the private sector will lead development. This is a myth. Actually, in every single episode of development ever seen in human history, the government has been the leader. And this makes sense. I mean, there is a head which leads the rest of the body. And if you cut off the head, you cannot have development. So as I said, this economic theory that let the private sector lead the way to development is another way to make sure that we never develop. Again, the way this question is formulated, that we should focus on elimination of corruption, again, this is completely wrong. One does not need to actually, surprisingly, I won't be able to give you the data for this, but I have collected it. There is nothing wrong with our level of corruption. I mean, everybody thinks, and you look at the statistics, oh, Pakistan at the bottom of corruption index. Totally wrong. America is much worse in corruption in government than we are, and we are comparable to in corruption to many other countries, and many other countries with the same level of corruption that we have done very well. So the corruption is not a bottleneck. It's not a problem, not a serious problem as it is made out to be. Of course, it is a problem. But Yani, I can give many examples of how the U.S. government is all the time making extremely corrupt decisions. Like, they deceived their own public. They spent millions of dollars to create a public relations campaign to deceive the public into thinking that Iraq is a threat when it was not. And then they spent trillions of dollars in destroying the country of Iraq. This is corruption. What more is corruption? Deceiving the public by and then doing something which is extremely harmful to the national interest. Also, it was against the national interest of America, and it was against Iraq, of course. So this is just one example. I can give you thousands of examples of how the big corporations in America have taken over the control, and they are passing every day bills and laws which favor corporations against the public. And this has been documented by political scientists in the US. So there is no reason to think that, no, they are very clean and honest and they have integrity. No, it's business as usual everywhere. So now what I was saying is that, anyway, a campaign for elimination of corruption, like we had a meeting here, this is not the way to eliminate corruption. Actually, in all situations, the way to make progress is to build on strength and to accentuate the positive. So instead of focusing on finding who is corrupt and executing them or jailing them, one has to focus on finding the people who are honest and have integrity and rewarding them. This is the way that one progresses. And this is not being done. Actually, alhamdulillah, we have no lack. There are lots of people who are efficient, honest, sincere, and doing their job with integrity. But these are not receiving the recognition and reward, and that is how you build. You don't build it by jailing corrupt people. Unfortunately, I mean, this is the wrong approach. Anyway, so economic theory is focusing on the wrong ideas. High growth rates. Our minister Ishaq Dar is always trying to get, okay, we want to get from 4.5 to 6.7. This is irrelevant. This is a red herring. Growth rate is not the focus of our concern. It should be how we can make the lives of millions of people who are living in misery in Pakistan, how we can make their lives better. This is the main problem of development. And this can be done, but nobody is focusing on it. The idea is that let's get growth going. And once we get growth, automatically there's this idea of the trickle-down effect, that a rising tide lifts all boat. And if our rich people will get richer, then they will somehow share this wealth with the people. In fact, Mahbubul Haq came into the first planning with this exact idea, and he was very disappointed with the results. So, again, our focus in all the planning discourses somehow working with globalization, getting foreign direct investment, CPEC, getting industries established, etc. The main thing that will make a difference to Pakistan is development of local capabilities. And so, personally, every one of you is in some service or the other. And so, what makes a difference is every human being can make a difference in his own institution, and you are the capability of that institution, and you can make a positive change. And this is how change happens. If every person gets out and pushes, then the bus will get started. But as long as we are waiting for the foreigners to come and fix our country for us, this is not going to happen. So, okay, so I'll go briefly since we are running out of time. That in 1960s, the Planning Commission was set up, and a Harvard group came to tell us how to make progress, and Mahbubul Haq was one of the people who participated. And so in his phase one, he was following exactly the Western theories which continue to be taught, which I learned when I was in graduate school in economics. And this is that you have to invest in build capital, and if you have to save money in order to buy capital. And how you save money, वो पेट काट के करना होता है. एंड किसका पेट काटना होगा, वो गरीबों का कटेगा, वो अमीरों का तो नहीं कटेगा. तो बेसिकली द स्ट्रेटजी which Abubul Haq recognized clearly, that growth is a very cruel process. You starve your population in order to save money to buy machines, and then that will give you growth. But Mahbub al-Haq realized that this is not working. After a while, and that was smart, he realized that basically the 22 families are making all the money, and nobody else is developing. So this was not a good thing. And this same experience has been replicated all over the world. If you follow the neoclassical theories which are being developed in Harvard and which are being taught all over the world, this has the exact same effect wherever it is tried. It was tried in Chile, in Russia, in many other countries, and it has the same effect. Inequality increases, you get a few billionaires, you get what seems like it could be progress, yani the numbers in GNP per capita can improve, but actually if you look at the ground realities, they are very bad. So Mahbub al-Haq understood this, and that was quite brilliant of him. And then he has been a major mover and shaker. He said, no, this theory was wrong. What we need to do is to focus on human development. So basically, the Human Development Index was created by Mahbub al-Haq and made part of the national agenda. This is a tremendous achievement of Mahbub al-Haq, that he put this on the global agenda. He made this into, he said that we should think about human development, and this includes education, health, and unemployment. And so these things are the important things to focus on. He realized that he couldn't bring a revolution at that time. So he said, okay, let's work with making this part of the discourse agenda. So at least it's on the table, we talk about it. But still, the goal has not been achieved. If you see tomorrow the newspaper were to say that Pakistan's human development indicators are going down, and there was a public outcry, then our ministers would talk about how we can improve our human development indexes, and that would have a big effect on Pakistan's policy making. But today, even though people talk about it, this is secondary importance, and the main thing is the GDP growth figure. If he achieves high GDP growth, then everybody says wah wah, and if GDP growth figures are low, then people say, oh, you have failed as a government. So given that our consensus is that this is the only important thing, making money, then this is how policies will be run. So actually changing the discourse is of great importance, much more than we realize. That, okay, so you have achieved 7% growth. I don't care. If the malnutrition in Pakistan is at 50%, then you have done nothing. So if we start talking like this, and if we start understanding this in our newspapers, then you'll say, okay. So if I want to get votes, I need to reduce the malnutrition because people are making a fuss about it. So these ideas that we have, these are very powerful, even though we don't realize them. We think that the issue is one of resource, but actually it's one of priorities. If we prioritize the wrong things, we will never get ahead. And this is exactly what is happening. So the issue is not, as Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So if everybody combines in trying to do something good, massive change will occur. So example, a lot of people are educated, a lot of people live in mahallas in which there are lots of uneducated people. If every one of us says that, okay, what I'm going to do is 10 people that I come into contact with, I will teach them how to read and write. And so if we did that, we could bring about social change. But if we say no, the government should open up schools and it should enact education policy, and what is Minister Balighur Rahman doing, then things will not change. Change, every person has to be an agent of change, and massive amount of change. This is how Islam changed the world, because every single person was an agent of change. People have actually examined statistically how did Islam spread. People, yes, Muslims went out and conquered Persia, and so they find out that it was not. There was no one. In India, it was Chishti Raziallah Ta'ala who created, who had hundreds of thousands of people who were converted at his hand. But this is a rare and exceptional case. What happened throughout history was that one person would go and talk to his neighbors, and people would say, "Oh, this is a good person," and they would say, "We want to be like him." And so there is no hero, there is no star. There are so many people who just did a little bit, and the whole nation changed. Today also, if everybody ensures that, and this is how Islamic conception is, that make sure that there's nobody hungry within 40 doors to your right and 40 doors to your left, your neighbors. And if we did that, today people are committing suicide because they are hungry, while their neighbor has plenty of food and money and everything. So this something, see, if we say that no, this person died of hunger, government is doing very bad policy. So this is not the solution to our problems. The government can only do a limited amount of work. And so the burden of development must lie on our shoulders. So massive social change is possible if everyone takes responsibility for it. Not, you see, the way it happens is that X is bad and Y is bad and Z is bad, but I am good. So the thing is that no, we have to rethink that what can I do to make a change, and it doesn't matter if the whole world is going on the wrong track. As long as I am on the right track and I am doing the right thing and I am doing what is in my capabilities, then this is all right. So there is this famous Sufi story of this little bird which was carrying a drop of water in its beak to put out the fire that was lit for burning Ibrahim alayhi salam. So the other bird said, "Are you crazy? Have you seen this fire? It is so large that what will one drop of water do?" So the bird said that, well, this is all that I can do. I'm doing all that I can do. So this is the story that is we need to emulate if we want to change. And then of course हमने वो पढ़ा था, वो बारिश का एक कतरा, पहला कतरा, वो हमने अपने बचपन में पढ़ा था. I don't know if they're still teaching that in schools anymore, but वो जमीन में खुशकी पड़ी थी पर बूंद अभी नहीं पड़ी थी. तो it was massive, और वो कतरे कह रहे हैं मैं तो अपनी पूरी जान दे दूंगा और होगा कुछ नहीं, इतनी लाखों एकड़ जमीन खुश्क पड़ी है, मेरे इससे क्या फायदा होगा. तो everybody is having a conversation about how why we should sacrifice ourselves when nothing is going to happen. तो एक कतरा कहता है कि चलो मैं चलता हूँ, कोई बात नहीं. तो वो उसकी हिम्मत को देख के उसके पीछे 10-15 और हो गए, उसके पे देख के उनके पीछे और हो गए. तो अल्टीमेटली जल थल बारिश हो गई और सारी जमीन सैराब हो गई. तो दिस इज हाउ इट सोशल चेंज वर्क्स. तो ये बातें हमें सिखलाई जाती हैं कि वी आर ऑर्डिनरी पीपल, हम लोग छोटे से हैं, मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता, सारी दुनिया अगर खराबी कर सकती तो मैं अकेले क्या करूंगा. दिस इज कम्प्लीटली रॉन्ग. अकेले लोगों ने बहुत सारे काम किए हैं और ऐसे ही होता है चेंज के अकेले आदमी हिम्मत करता है कि सारी दुनिया गलत काम करे, मैं सही काम करूंगा, तो देन चेंज हैपेंस. अच्छा, तो कमिंग बैक टू द टॉपिक, वी आर ऑलमोस्ट आउट ऑफ टाइम. मैंने कहा था कि 1 बजे तक है और आई विल गिव अबाउट हाफ एन आवर. तो गिविंग सम वेरी क्रूशियल एलिमेंट्स ऑफ व्हाट इज गोइंग ऑन इन द वर्ल्ड. देखिए, असल में वन हैज टू कंबाइन, यानी एक लोकल एफर्ट होती है और फिर एक ग्लोबल होती है. और हम अगर किसी पाथ पे चलना चाहते हैं तो हमें एक बड़ी निगाह रखनी है. विजन हैज टू बी ब्रॉड, वी हैव टू हैव अ big goal in front of us, because you only achieve according to your goal. If one of my biggest efforts among my students is that don't focus on and don't make the goal of your life कि मुझे एक जॉब करनी है और कुछ पैसे कमाने हैं. That's ridiculous. Yani you can change the world if you like. So why settle for such a low goal? So if you ask for हाथी के पैर में सब आ जाता है. If you ask for the big thing from Allah, तू ही नादा चंद कतरों पर चंद कलियों पर कनात कर गया, वरना गुलशन में इलाज तंगी दामा में था. अल्लाह ताला के ट्रेजर जो बहुत ह्यूज हैं. तुम दो तीन चीजें उनसे मांगते हो कि दाल रोटी मुझे मिल जाए, तो फिर तुम्हें दाल रोटी मिल जाएगी, मगर you will be deprived of the greatest things that you could have done with your life. So if you set yourself a huge goal, then you will your actions will have impact in accordance with your goals. So you have to have a large goal, but also you have to make sure that your next step is in the right place. So local और global दोनों चीजें साथ होती हैं. अगर if you're just looking at the next step, then you will move in any direction. If you look at the big picture and you don't look where you're going, then you'll fall down. So you have to have a big goal, and then you have to make sure that the small step that you take is in the right direction. Then a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So that's how it works. So this simultaneous focus on the big picture and the small picture is necessary to achieve progress. You can't do one or the other. So currently there's very strange and very important shifts that are taking place in the global scenario. So actually, USA has, so far we have been allied with USA, 100%. Friends, not masters, our dream. But as far as I can see, and this is just speculation on my part, I haven't any. US has no further use for Pakistan anymore. For a while, it had. When Russia, it was trying to contain Russia, and when there was the Afghan war, then we were a strategic ally of USA. But now they are giving up in Afghanistan, and also Russia has been, whatever it is, Pakistan is of no help to USA against Russia. So they have shifted already their strategic interest to India. They are partnering with India. We, on the other hand, have thrown in our lot with China by giving them Gwadar. Now, Gwadar is of great importance to China. So now, actually, when we think about whether India will go to war with us, India also has to reckon that China is no longer a disinterested, neutral third party. It wants to build this road to Gwadar because that is of great strategic importance. So now India cannot think that it will attack Pakistan and China will sit idly. So this is an important strategic consideration. The CPEC is a game changer. So now actually mindset is very important. If we keep thinking, as our politicians continue to do, that we are allied with USA, then we might miss some important opportunities. And you have to remember that the political theory which is taught in the US is completely opportunistic. There is no concept. ये हमारा ईस्ट और वेस्ट का फर्क है. हम लोग समझते हैं कि वफादारी एक चीज है और हमदर्दी एक चीज है और दोस्ती एक चीज है और उसको निभाना चाहिए. वहां ऐसी कोई कॉन्सेप्ट है ही नहीं. It's all, this is what they are taught in their PhD. It's all a matter of interest. This is called realpolitik, which Machiavelli taught. कि भाई, if your interests are with India, then you go with India. ये कि हमने वफादारी करनी है, उन्होंने हमारे लिए कुर्बानी दी. This just doesn't play any role. But unfortunately, our Pakistanis are brought up in a different culture, so we think that these things make a difference. So that's why I think there's a possibility of making. So there is a major shifts in geopolitical configurations going on. It's very complex. I cannot break it down for you easily, but just want to let you know that when there are big changes, then in order to benefit from them, you have to make big changes in policies and plans and ways of thinking. And if you make little bit change, you can't move with the flow, and then you get lost or crushed. So I am quite afraid that our policymakers and executives don't have the vision and the capability that is required to steer the nation when there's a violent storm that is taking place as it is right now. But you are the leaders of the future, and so you have to understand and study on your own and come to come to the grips with the situation so that you can make the changes. So in a regional scenario, again, the fact is that this tension with India is extremely harmful to us. It would be very nice if we could have peace with them. This old strategy of divide and conquer, this has been the source. Today, because of this tension, America is able to sell millions of dollars of weapons to both India and Pakistan. If we did not have this tension, we could use these millions of dollars for our own domestic development. It would be a win-win situation for both sides. Unfortunately, there is a huge amount of money that is being spent to create this tension and hostility, and I don't know how we can resolve it. It's very harmful to us. It's very harmful to India, and but I don't know how to find the solution. Maybe similarly, we need to rethink and reconfigure trading patterns. Currently, we are focused too heavily on our major export partners are the ones with whom we do not have long-run strategic interests. Actually, we need to focus more on Afghanistan, Iran, and if it was possible, India would be useful, but maybe politically it may be impossible. And we have to de-link ourselves from those economies with which we don't have strategic interests. The domestic scenario is that things are actually not bad at all. There are many very positive, very good developments going on in Pakistan. There is this doom and gloom scenario, and there is something, Ani, I think that foreign agents are actively intervening in Pakistan, but they have faced many defeats. Actually, you can find that they tried to create a revolution in Balochistan and they failed. They're still trying in Gilgit-Baltistan. India is trying to create a corridor through to Afghanistan and split Pakistan, and this is a threat for the future. And there are many other threats which I won't name that are going on. So there is active opposition and active intervention in Pakistani's domestic affairs, which is designed to break down our progress and interfere. But at the same time, there are wonderful things going on, wonderful things, which again, we are not aware of, so that we don't, actually optimism and confidence, this is the first requirement for making progress. If we are defeated already in the minds, then we are defeated. So if we think, of course it's a battle, it's not that it's one-sided. Of course there's going to be struggle, but it is not at all hopeless. We have lots of resources, lots of good things are happening. To give just one example, what we need as the highest priority is health and education. We need to improve our public sector hospitals, and we need to improve our public sector schools. Now this can be done. We have a miracle in the shape of Indus Hospital in Karachi, which is running millions of rupees worth of patients, and there is no cash counter. Anybody who walks in can receive state-of-the-art medical treatment without paying any money. This is an example for the whole world. There is no such institution anywhere in the rest of the world. So now if we can achieve efficient management at Indus and at many other hospitals we have, why can't we transfer these management practices to our public sector hospitals? It's a question of will and vision. And similarly, we have very good schools, not in the public sector. So why can't we transfer those management practices? There has to be a way to do this. I'm not saying that I have the solution, but I'm saying that it is possible to find the solution. And if we work on it, if we make this our priority, we can do that. Similarly, we have very efficient private sector organizations. One of the leaders, Pakistan, World Bank, looked for leaders for their training courses in management, and Pakistan was selected because we have excellent managers who have been well trained. So what we need is not this myth and fallacy that our government is corrupt. We need to improve management in the government. And actually, one thing which has been remarked by those who are a little bit not subject to these myths, that government is a bureaucracy, private sector is also a bureaucracy. All of the big organizations, they are just as bureaucratic and they run on roughly the same principles. So if we can import efficient management practices from the private sector to the public sector, we can turn Pakistan around. So the question is, who is going to be the driver of this change? It is going to be you. There is no other possibility. If we wait for foreign experts, this is the great thing. This is the great myth that handicaps us, and that some foreign expert is going to come in and tell us how to run our affairs. Actually, my brother and many other people who have had this experience have noted that when the foreign expert comes up, it takes him at least 2 years to find out the ground reality and to find out which end is up before he can make. And I saw this at LUMS when they got the rector out from USA, and he would immediately come in and he would assume that there is nothing here, and he would start implementing policies which were good for the USA, which he had in his mind, and they were completely bad in Pakistani context. And similarly, but it would take him a couple of years to realize why this didn't work and why those people there who were sitting there, they had implemented policies not because they were stupid, because they had experience, and they knew what would work, and he would just set them at zero. So this is the thing, that we don't have the self-confidence required to make change. Actually, today, if I were to give a class in Harvard the problem of designing the policy, economic policy for Pakistan, I was to give it to you, you would be able to design a better policy. This is very important to understand, that you have the experience, the knowledge, and the skills. They don't. But unfortunately, today, again, we are inviting Harvard Consultative Group to come and give us advice to make economic development. It's completely wrong. And there was this famous economist who came to Russia, and he gave them completely the wrong advice and caused the economy to collapse. Jeffrey Sachs, exactly, sent us the. So this has happened all over the world. The foreign experts will ruin your economy. Unfortunately, today we don't have any self-confidence. We believe that whatever the foreign experts say is true, and our local people are just stupid, so they can't understand what's going on. This is completely wrong and fallacious, and this is the biggest obstacle to development that we have, not utilizing our local knowledge and skills. So it's 12:40. I will stop here and we'll give 20 minutes for the question answer section. Yeah, I will. Must stop this recording. You can ask right now. Yes.